For more than a century, life on a U.S. Navy submarine belonged to men, until a single Pentagon decision shattered that world. In 2010, just 24 women were chosen to break through, vanishing beneath the waves for months as part of the nuclear force. Welcoming women into this steel underworld meant more than permission. It demanded that every crewmate confront centuries of tradition, sudden scrutiny, and stakes far higher than privacy or comfort. What happened when these pioneers surfaced inside an institution built to keep them out? And what brutal truths still go unspoken deep below the ocean? Official Navy policy kept women off submarines for more than 100 years. The reasons were practical: tight quarters, no privacy, and the belief that the demands of submarine life were simply incompatible with mixed-gender crews. That changed in 2010, when the Secretary of Defense signed a historic memo. The ban was over. The Navy selected 24 women, all officers, for the first wave. Some were nuclear-trained engineers, others supply officers, all drawn from the top ranks of the Naval Academy, ROTC, and Officer Candidate School. Their journey began with months of nuclear power school, then intensive submarine officer training, a gauntlet of technical exams, engineering drills, and leadership tests that matched the rigor expected of any submariner. There were no shortcuts. By late 2011, the first of these women received assignments to Ohio-class ballistic and guided missile submarines, USS Wyoming, USS Maine, USS Georgia, and USS Ohio. For the first time, women would spend months submerged inside the most secretive arm of the U.S. military, trusted with the nation's nuclear deterrent. This was not just a new chapter for the Navy, it was a leap into the unknown. The first cohort knew they carried more than their own ambitions. Their performance would shape every opinion about women in submarines for years to come. They faced the same technical standards, the same relentless drills, the same pressure to earn their dolphins, the insignia that marks a fully qualified submariner. Inside the hull, they learned to navigate not just the machinery and watch rotations, but the weight of history and the gaze of a crew unaccustomed to change. By the end of 2012, all 24 had reported for duty. Their presence below the surface made headlines, but inside the boats, it was the daily work, standing watch, responding to alarms, proving themselves in silence, that began to redefine what it meant to serve under the ocean. Aboard a nuclear submarine, numbers tell their own story. Out of more than 600 women assigned to the submarine force by the mid-2020s, only a handful serve on any given boat. In a crew of 130 to 150, women are often counted on one hand, sometimes just one or two officers, sometimes a single enlisted sailor in her entire division. For most, daily life means moving through passageways and workspaces as the only woman present, surrounded by a sea of uniforms that look nothing like their own. This demographic reality shapes every interaction. At meals, in the control room, during drills, a woman's presence is impossible to overlook. Even in the silence of a midnight watch, the sense of being watched never fully fades. The weight of hypervisibility is constant. Every question, every correction, every laugh carries extra meaning. The smallest mistake can feel amplified, not just for the individual, but for all women who might follow. Some describe the pressure as a kind of double duty, proving themselves as submariners and as representatives of their gender, all at once. Social isolation takes on new meaning in this environment. Camaraderie forms quickly among crew members, but the lack of peers can leave women without anyone to confide in about the unique stresses they face. Informal support networks, the kind that help most sailors vent and decompress, are often out of reach. Isolation is not just about space, it is about not seeing another face that shares your experience for weeks or months at a time. By the early 2020s, the Navy counted over 600 women in submarine roles, but on most boats, the reality remains stark. Women are a tiny minority, sometimes the only one in a watch section, berthing area, or work group. This imbalance shapes the personal and professional challenges that follow, from privacy to daily routines, and sets the stage for the lived experience that comes next. Ohio-class submarines, built in the Cold War for all-male crews, became the first testbed for mixed-gender service. Their size offered the only real option for carving out extra space, but even then, every inch was contested. Shipyard workers installed lockable staterooms and converted heads, adding doors where there had only been curtains. These modifications cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per boat, yet the changes were measured in feet, sometimes just a narrow passage or a single bunk behind a locked door. The core machinery, weapons, and reactor spaces stayed untouched. Privacy came from carpentry and creative scheduling, not from any fundamental redesign. An architect who advised on these retrofits described the process as a puzzle with no spare pieces. Every new wall or door meant something else had to shrink. Crew lounges grew smaller, storage lockers disappeared, and even the galley lost square footage to make room for female-only berthing. The goal was simple: create spaces where women could change, sleep, and shower without fear of interruption, all while keeping the boat combat-ready and within weight limits. Later, as the Virginia-class program expanded, designers started from the keel up. On boats like USS New Jersey, gender-neutral layouts became the standard. Sliding dividers replaced fixed walls, and heads were built for flexibility rather than segregation. These new designs meant the question of privacy no longer depended on who happened to be assigned to the crew. For the first time, the submarine itself was ready for anyone who could qualify, not just the men it was originally built to serve. Sleep on a submarine is a luxury measured in minutes, not hours. With 135 sailors and only 94 bunks on boats like the USS Missouri, every rack is in constant use. Hot racking becomes the rule, with 3 people assigned to the same narrow bed, each rotating through in shifts. The mattress is always warm, the sheets never truly yours. There is no space for personal belongings, just a small pouch and whatever you can tuck in beside you. On some nights, exhaustion blurs the lines between waking and sleeping, with bodies sliding into racks still creased from the last occupant. The 18-hour day shapes everything. 3 6-hour watches cycle endlessly: work, maintenance, sleep, repeat. There is no sunrise or sunset to anchor the mind, only the thrum of machinery and the glow of red-lit corridors. A sailor might sleep at noon, wake at midnight, and never see the same faces twice in a row. The boat's tempo is relentless, designed to keep the reactor running and the mission on track, but it leaves little room for rest. For women, the challenge is doubled. Berthing clusters are arranged to keep privacy, but this means schedules must be coordinated down to the minute. If one person's watch runs late, the whole group's sleep can unravel. Every missed hour adds up, and the pressure to perform, to never make a mistake, and to never be the weak link, settles in with every lost minute of rest. The margin for error shrinks, replaced by the knowledge that fatigue is just another obstacle to overcome in a world where the lights never go out and the work never really ends. Fresh water on a submarine is as precious as sleep. Most of what is made from seawater is diverted to cool the reactor and keep vital equipment running. That leaves the crew rationed to the bare minimum. Navy showers that last just a minute or two, sometimes even less. Imagine more than 130 people sharing only a handful of showers, each slot squeezed between watch changes and maintenance rounds. The routine is strict: step in, get wet, soap up, rinse off, and out. There is no lingering, no luxury. The water often runs cold by the end of the cycle, and the line outside never seems to shrink. For women, these limits bring extra challenges. Hair care means planning ahead, sometimes skipping washes for days, or finding creative ways to manage with what little water is available. Menstrual hygiene is another hurdle. Supplies have to be packed for weeks, and there is nowhere private to dispose of anything discreetly. The heads, submarine slang for bathrooms, are small, with barely enough room to turn around. Privacy comes in short bursts, protected by a lock or a scheduled time, but never guaranteed. Medical support is another squeeze. Every submarine carries a single independent duty corpsman, trained to handle everything from injuries to infections to mental health emergencies. But that is one person for the entire crew, and there is no doctor on board. Serious issues, gynecological complications, infections, or anything beyond basic care often mean waiting for a rare satellite link to consult a specialist on shore. In the tight confines of a steel tube, even the most personal needs become a matter of logistics, patience, and quiet endurance. Isolation. Inside a submarine is more than a physical reality. It is a mental test that never lets up. Navy records show that nearly a third of unplanned personnel losses from the submarine force are linked to mental health diagnoses. That number, about 30%, stands out in a community known for its toughness and silence about personal struggles. The reasons are woven into the fabric of life underwater: weeks without sunlight, constant noise, and the knowledge that there is no easy way out. For women, the pressure is even sharper. Being one of only a few, or sometimes the only one, means always being visible, always aware that any mistake might be noticed, remembered, and discussed. In 2012, the Navy started a new approach, embedding mental health providers with submarine squadrons at home ports. The goal was to make help available before issues turned into crises, and to fight the stigma that kept sailors, especially women, from reaching out. By 2016, every major submarine home port had its own dedicated mental health professional, ready to support crews before and after deployment. These providers report that while every submariner faces stress, women are more likely to talk about anxiety, isolation, and the fear that seeking help could hurt their careers. On patrol, there is no break from the routine, and no easy way to escape the sense of being watched. The psychological toll can build quietly, leading to fatigue, sleeplessness, or a feeling of being cut off from the world. Embedded counselors describe their role as part safety net and part sounding board, a place where sailors can speak freely, even if only for a few minutes between watches. The invisible cost of service at depth is measured not just in lost sleep or missed milestones, but in the quiet, daily work it takes to keep a crew whole. 6 months beneath the surface is not just a test of endurance. On USS Missouri, 163 out of 181 days passed without surfacing, the outside world reduced to static-filled messages and the monotony of recycled air. Crew members marked time by the rhythm of drills, meals, and watch rotations, but the sense of isolation deepened as weeks blurred together. There is no sunrise or sunset, just the hum of the reactor and the steady pressure to remain vigilant. Inside this closed world, the rules are absolute. Zero-tolerance policies govern every interaction. Romantic relationships and even the perception of favoritism can end careers. In 2014, 2 sailors on USS Wyoming were caught secretly filming female officers in the shower. The investigation led to court-martial and discharge, and the Navy responded with stricter privacy protocols and renewed training. For women, the fallout was a reminder that trust could be shattered in an instant, and that the burden of scrutiny never really lifts. Invisible risks linger in the background. Every submariner wears a radiation dosimeter, clipped to a uniform or stowed in a pocket, tracking exposure from the reactor. Readings are checked and logged, always below Navy limits. But the worry persists, especially for women thinking about future pregnancies. Assignment policies ban pregnant sailors from deploying, but the anxiety over long-term health is harder to shake. The knowledge that years of service could carry unseen consequences travels quietly, another weight in an already heavy environment. Discipline is constant, but so is the pressure. The cost of a mistake can be measured in trust lost, careers ended, or health questions that may not be answered for years. Every patrol becomes a pressure cooker, compressing risk, rumor, and responsibility into the narrow steel corridors, with no escape until the boat finally surfaces again. Dominique Saavedra stood in the control room of USS Michigan in 2016, her silver dolphins freshly pinned to her uniform, She was the first enlisted woman in the Navy's history to qualify in submarines, a milestone earned after months of technical study, drills, and watchstanding. Saavedra's path was not just about breaking a barrier, it was about mastering every system, every emergency procedure, every expectation set for those who serve beneath the waves. Her qualification was a signal to the entire force. Women could meet the standard, rack up the hours, and carry the responsibility of the silent service. Since then, the Navy has built a leadership pipeline, moving women from the first officer cohorts into department head and executive officer roles. By the early 2020s, several women from those initial waves were already leading divisions, writing evaluations, and shaping the culture for those who followed. The service now expects its first female submarine commanding officers within the decade. Each promotion, each new department head billet filled by a woman, is a step toward normalizing what once seemed impossible. For many, the sight of a woman in charge of a watch section or piloting the boat through a narrow channel is no longer remarkable. It is simply the next phase of a community determined to measure its members by skill, not stereotype. Earning dolphins is more than a rite of passage. It's the moment a submariner is recognized by the crew as one of their own. For women, those silver pins carry an extra weight, the proof that they met every standard, mastered every system, and did it while standing out in every room. The sense of belonging that comes with the dolphins pinned above a uniform pocket runs deep. Mentorship networks have grown across the fleet, linking junior sailors with officers and chiefs who have walked the same narrow passageways. These relationships offer guidance and a place to ask questions no manual can answer. Formal and informal, these support systems help women navigate the invisible lines of tradition and expectation that linger in the submarine force. The pride of qualifying, of being trusted to stand watch at the reactor or in the control room, is matched by the satisfaction of helping the next sailor earn her dolphins. Each success strengthens the network, building a new kind of undersea community, one where skill, not stereotype, defines who belongs. For many, that sense of shared accomplishment is what keeps them coming back, deployment after deployment, determined not just to survive, but to thrive together beneath the waves. Today, over 600 women serve on U.S. submarines, still outnumbered, but no longer invisible. As the Navy prepares for its first female submarine commanders, every new deployment tests whether skill finally outweighs stereotype. The undersea force keeps evolving, but the real pressure is not just in the reactor core. It is in proving that, even at crush depth, equality is non-negotiable. What do you think the next decade will bring?